The first method I'm going to mention is one of my currently very popular ones, and it's flashcards. Okay. I actually brought my flashcards here with me, so feel free to check them out later. I think they're beautiful. I got them in a stationery store, and it's just a very simple piece of paper. You know, it's not especially hard paper or something, but they're colorful, and this is quite important to me, so I love them. Now, what you do, it's really simple. I use this for Swahili right now. I basically write words on one side of the paper in Slovak, and on the other side of the card, I write them in Swahili, okay? I always include some grammar into it as well. So in Swahili, it's quite important to know the plural form, because nouns are different depending on which class they belong to. So this is in Swahili. In German, you would write what with the noun? You would write the gender, yeah, der, die, das, which is quite important, right? In English, for example, if you have a verb, which is maybe an irregular verb, what would you write? The past tense, exactly. So speak, spoken, yeah? You could write that. I mean, you can include any information in the cards as you like. And basically what you do, just to explain the system, okay, this is called spaced repetition system, is that you basically go through the cards from here. This is your starting position. And you look at the word, you look at it in Slovak, in your mother tongue, and you test yourself. Again, you don't look at it before you actually say the answer. Maybe you will not know it, but at least give it 2 seconds for your brain to try to find the translation, okay? And then you look at it like, okay, an illness is, I don't know, let's say ugonjwa, okay? Like, okay, ugonjwa, and the plural is magonjwa. Good to know. So now, it was a completely new word for me, so I will put it somewhere close to the beginning, because I want to make sure that I see this card, let's say in 2 or 3 minutes again, okay? I don't want to put it in the back, because it will take me ages to go through all this other vocabulary before I get to see it again. That means if it's easy for us, we put it closer to the beginning. If it's more difficult, if it's easy for us, we put it at the end. If it's more difficult, we put it closer to the beginning. Makes sense, right? It can get a little bit more complex, like I use different categories. I have like the very new words, the words which I used yesterday for the first time, then words which I'm processing, and words which I fairly know and which I know really well. Okay, so it can go into different categories, and then I put it into the individual part, and I know every day that I want to first go through the words which I knew well, then through the words which I'm still learning, etc., etc., and I spend more time on the new words than on the words which I'm just revising, to keep track. So you can work with the cards like this, and it's actually quite fun. You can either get a set of cards like this, or you can, cut them out of a piece of paper yourself. It's really simple. So that's one way to work with vocabulary. Now, for those of you who are very modern and don't want to cut pieces of paper and carry them around, we have apps for the same thing. And I would like to really stress the importance of ANKI, which is super well known in the world of polyglots. And I think most of polyglots that I know agree that this is the best app for a spaced repetition system. It's called ANKI if you download it for the PC, and ANKI Droid if you use it for Android. Okay, there is a version for iPhones, but it's a paid one. If you want to synchronize it with your PC, it costs you about 30 euros. So it's pretty expensive. But you can use one which is very similar, and it's called Brainscape. Okay, so it's for free for iPhones. So it's basically the same. So ANKI, you can download it at ankisrs.net. You can use 2 types of cards there. The first type is pre-made card decks, which someone else made for you, learning the same language as you are, and just made it public. Okay, there is in the app you have a possibility to get shared decks. Okay, this is like getting new decks, and basically to just download it and keep testing. Like someone created the cards for you, and you go. Now, how it looks is it shows you the sentence, let's say in Russian, "Никто не остался," and then you're supposed to say what it means in your language. And then you say, no one left, Okay, so you checked, you push like, show me the answer, and it showed you the other part of the card. Now you decide whether it was difficult, it was like, okay, or it was easy. And it puts it into the relevant respective part of the deck. Okay, so this is the same thing, just this is digital. That means that if you say this one was difficult, it will show it to you again in 1 minute maybe. If you say, oh, this one was easy, maybe it will show it to you in 5 days. Okay, it has a very specific algorithm which you can trust. Like, this is really based on science. It's not haphazard, you know. It's really based on how our brain works. And I really recommend that you follow the default settings of ANKI. If you don't have experience using the spaced repetition system, I suggest that you follow their recommendations. If they say this is enough for today, then that's enough. Don't go for more words, okay? So that's one way, what you can do. And I actually suggest that you always learn phrases and sentences rather than individual words. It's always better, especially if you are on a level like A2 or plus. It's always better, okay, to find those cards with phrases and sentences. Now, using your own card decks is another possibility of working with ANKI, and it's actually so much better and so much more effective that I totally recommend to you to do it this way. But I know that 95% of you will still try it with the pre-made cards because it's the easier way, right? But you will see, I mean, this is what happens all the time with my students. They try it, they go like, oh, but there is a nice deck, you know, that I can use. And then after a few weeks, they tell me like, yeah, it actually works better if I create the cards myself. I know it takes time, it is time consuming, but actually what happens with ANKI or, you know, any flashcards is that the actual learning happens while you are preparing the cards. It happens while I'm actually writing, you know, ugonjwa on this card. This is when the learning happens. And what we do with the flashcards then is just the revision. We're making sure this stays in our long-term memory, okay? That's why creating your own cards makes so much more sense. It really is much better for you. This is, for example, the PC version of ANKI. You know, I created this set out of a book, which was like English idioms, advanced idioms. And yeah, I show it to myself in Slovak, and then I say it in English, and then I decide whether I want, again, good or easy. Now, it's also quite recommended to always test yourself from your mother tongue into the foreign language. So in the first picture, this was not a very good example. Like if I'm learning Russian and I speak English well, I wouldn't go through these words in this way. I would flip the cards so that first I see no one left. I'm trying to say, like, how is this in Russian? And then I say it in Russian. Okay, so this is a better example of the order, because you're learning, like, this is really the active vocabulary you're trying to learn. This is the difference between passive and active. Many people make the mistakes of just learning vocabulary the passive way, right? Like, oh, I know what double up in pain means, you know, like, oh yeah, it's that thing. But if you ask me, like, how do you say skrucať sa od bolesti, I'm not able to say it myself because it is just in my passive vocabulary. That's why testing yourself from mother tongue into foreign language makes much more sense.